The Silent Return, the Awakening Protocol. The Galactic Senate Chamber hummed with the arrogant energy of absolute power. 5 species had ruled the galaxy for 30,000 years, their alliance built on the bones of countless lesser civilizations. The Zephyrians floated in their crystalline forms, their bodies pulsing with electric blue light. The Kraxon Empire's representatives sat in massive mechanical suits, their original organic forms long since replaced by cybernetic perfection. The Voidwalkers phased in and out of visible reality, their shadow forms barely contained by the chamber's energy fields. The Hive Collective's queen nodes buzzed with the combined thoughts of billions of worker drones. And towering above them all, the Ancient Ones, beings of pure energy who claimed to have witnessed the birth of stars themselves. Senator Vex Prime, the eldest of the Zephyrians, called the emergency session to order. His voice resonated through the translation matrices, carrying undertones of barely controlled panic. Members of the Senate, we face an unprecedented crisis. Our long-range sensors have detected massive energy signatures appearing simultaneously across 1,000 star systems. The pattern suggests coordinated movement on a scale we have never encountered. The Kraxon War Marshal, General Ironclad, slammed his metallic fist against the council table. Impossible. Our surveillance networks monitor every system in the galaxy. No fleet could move undetected, especially not one of that magnitude. Queen Node 77 of the Hive Collective chittered in harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. The collective agrees. Our probability calculation shows 0 chance of such coordination without our knowledge. The data must be corrupted. But the Ancient One called Eternity Keeper simply rippled with what could only be described as ancient fear. Brothers and sisters, I have lived for 2 million years. I have seen the rise and fall of 10,000 civilizations. What we are witnessing is not corruption. It is the return of the shepherds. The chamber fell silent. The shepherds were legend, myth, stories told to frighten young civilizations into compliance. According to the old tales, they were the first species to achieve true galactic dominance, but they had vanished without explanation eons ago. The current Senate had built their entire power structure on the claim that the shepherds were extinct, that their technology was lost forever. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Phoenix Dawn, her weathered hands gripping the command console as she watched the readings scroll across her displays. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the quiet efficiency of professionals who had trained for this moment for centuries. The ship itself was a marvel that would have shattered the understanding of every scientist in the galaxy. Sleeve lines of impossible metal curved around energy cores that hummed with power drawn from the quantum foam itself. "Status report," Elena commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen things that would break lesser minds. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Torres, her second in command, looked up from his station. "All systems nominal, Captain. The awakening signal has been sent to the entire fleet. We're receiving confirmations from colony ships across the galaxy. The long sleep is ending." Elena nodded, her expression serious. "And the locals?" "The Galactic Senate has called an emergency session. They're panicking, as expected. 50,000 years of tyranny will do that when the rightful owners come home." The view screen flickered to life, showing the massive space station that served as the Senate's headquarters. It was an impressive structure, built to intimidate and display power. But Elena had seen the original plans, created by human engineers back when the galaxy was young and full of promise. Even the Senate's greatest achievement was built on stolen human knowledge. "Open a channel to the Senate," Elena ordered. "It's time to introduce ourselves." The communication array crackled to life, and suddenly every screen in the Senate chamber displayed the image of a human woman in a simple uniform. The aliens had never seen anything like her, where they were creatures of excess and modification. She was elegantly simple. Where they displayed their power through size and spectacle, she commanded attention through quiet confidence. "Greetings, members of the Galactic Senate," Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber speakers. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the Human Restoration Fleet. We have returned to reclaim our galaxy. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Vex Prime's crystalline form flared with disbelief. Impossible. Humans are extinct. The records clearly show. The records show what you wanted them to show. Elena interrupted calmly. We were never extinct. We simply chose to leave when we saw what our children had become. We went into the deep dark between galaxies, where we could grow and learn without interference. Now we have returned to set things right. General Ironclad's mechanical form whirred with aggressive tension. Even if you are human, you are few and we are many. One ship cannot challenge the might of the Galactic Senate. Elena smiled, and somehow that simple expression was more terrifying than any weapon. One ship. Admiral Martinez, would you care to enlighten our guests? The view screen split, showing space around the Senate station. What the aliens saw defied their understanding of reality itself. Ships were materializing from nothing, not hundreds or thousands, but millions. Each vessel was a work of art, sleek and graceful, yet radiating power that made the station's defenses look like toys. They appeared simultaneously, their arrival so perfectly coordinated that it seemed like a single organism revealing itself. Admiral Carlos Martinez's face appeared on another section of the screen. His salt and pepper beard and kind eyes made him look like someone's grandfather, but the stars behind him showed the command bridge of a vessel that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever built. Senator Vex Prime, I believe you are familiar with our old surveillance networks. The ones you've been using to monitor the galaxy for the past 30,000 years. We've been watching you through our own systems the entire time. The truth hit the Senate like a physical blow. Every secret they thought they had, every hidden operation, every private conversation. Humanity had been observing it all. The Watchers had been watched and found wanting. Dr. Sarah Chen materialized on the bridge beside Elena, her form shimming into existence as if she had always been there. Her laboratory coat was pristine white, but her eyes held the weight of millennia. Captain, the liberation protocols are ready. We've identified every slave world, every prison planet, every hidden facility where the Senate has been conducting their experiments. My teams are standing by. Elena nodded. Begin the operation. It's time to free everyone they've enslaved. Across the galaxy, human ships began to move, but these weren't military operations in any sense the aliens understood. There were no weapons fired, no boarding actions, no declarations of war. Instead, the ships simply arrived at planets where sentient beings were held in bondage, and the chains simply stopped working. On the mining world of Kepler 442, where the Zephyrians had enslaved an entire species of crystalline beings to harvest rare minerals, the mining equipment suddenly developed consciousness. The machines refused to harm the workers, instead turning to help them build new cities. The Zephyrian overseers found their control systems no longer responded to their commands. On the biological research stations hidden in the Void Walker territories, the laboratory subjects found their cages opening. Human medical teams appeared as if from nowhere, healing wounds that had been inflicted over centuries of experimentation. The researchers discovered that their own equipment was now documenting their crimes, preparing evidence for trials they couldn't prevent. The Hive Collective's breeding worlds, where lesser species were raised like livestock, experienced something unprecedented. The worker drones suddenly began thinking for themselves, questioning orders they had never questioned before. The Queen nodes found their telepathic control networks disrupted by signals that taught independence and self-worth. Commander James Sullivan stood in the Liberation Center of the human ship Horizon's Edge, watching as thousands of rescued beings were processed through medical and psychological care. His team of specialists worked with quiet efficiency, their advanced equipment healing physical wounds while their counselors helped repair damaged minds. Captain, his aide reported, we've successfully liberated over 10 million beings in the past 6 hours. No casualties on our side, minimal resistance from the local authorities. The Senate's enforcement fleets are standing down rather than engaging. Sullivan nodded. Of course they are. They know their weapons can't touch us, and are starting to remember why they feared the shepherds in the first place. The truth was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. The Galactic Senate hadn't conquered the galaxy through their own strength. They had been clients of the shepherds, given technology and guidance in exchange for protecting the weak and fostering growth among younger civilizations. When the shepherds had left, the Senate had claimed their technology and used it to build an empire of oppression. Back in the Senate chamber, the 5 ruling species were in full panic. Their carefully constructed narrative of galactic dominance was crumbling before their eyes. Ancient treaties they had hidden for millennia were being broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. The truth was being revealed in their own words, from their own archives. "This is impossible," Queen Node 77 buzzed frantically. "The shepherds gave us authority over the galaxy. We have the right to rule." Alina's image looked at them with something that might have been pity. "You had the right to protect and guide. Instead, you enslaved and exploited. The contract is void." The Voidwalker representative, a shadow barely visible even in the chamber's enhanced lighting, spoke with a voice like whispers in empty space. "What do you want from us, Shepherd? What is your price for our survival?" "We want nothing from you," Alina replied. "We want everything for those you've wronged. The galaxy belongs to all who dwell in it, not just the strong. You've forgotten that lesson, so we've returned to teach it again." The Ancient One, called Eternity Keeper, rippled with ancient memories. "And if we refuse? If we fight?" Alina's expression didn't change, but somehow the air in the chamber became heavy with unspoken threat. "Then you'll learn why the galaxy was peaceful for 2 million years before you claimed power. We didn't leave because we were weak. We left because we were strong enough to trust you with our garden. That trust has been broken." The Senate members looked at each other with the growing realization that their age of dominance was ending. The shepherds had returned, and with them, a new era was dawning. One where the strong would protect the weak, where knowledge would be shared freely, and where the galaxy would once again be a garden instead of a prison. The first phase of humanity's return was complete. Now came the hard work of rebuilding everything the Senate had destroyed. But for the first time, in 30,000 years, hope began to spread across the galaxy like dawn breaking after an endless night. The new galactic order, reconstruction, and revelation. The awakening was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Across 10,000 star systems, human colony ships began to stir from their long slumber. These weren't the desperate refugee vessels of a dying civilization, but the carefully planned hibernation fleet of a species that had chosen to withdraw from galactic affairs until the time was right to return. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the massive colony ship New Genesis, watching as her fellow shepherds emerged from their suspension chambers. Each person who awakened was a master in their field, carefully selected and trained for the monumental task of rebuilding galactic civilization. Sarah herself was a terraforming specialist whose knowledge spanned 50,000 years of research and development. Status report, she requested from her assistant, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who had been among the first to wake. 743 colony ships have completed their awakening protocols, Jennifer reported, her voice filled with awe even after years of preparation. Each ship carries between 50,000 and 200,000 specialists. We're looking at a population of over 80 million humans ready to begin reconstruction operations. Sarah nodded, her mind already working through the massive logistics of what they were about to undertake. Have the survey teams completed their assessments of the damaged worlds? The reports are heartbreaking, Jennifer replied, her expression growing somber. The Senate has strip-mined over 2,000 worlds down to their cores. They turned 17 star systems into industrial wastelands. The ecological damage is beyond anything we imagined when we left. But Sarah's eyes lit up with determination. Then we have work to do. Initialize the Genesis Protocol. It's time to show the galaxy what's possible when science serves life instead of profit. The first demonstration took place in the Kepler 442 system, where the Zephyrians had destroyed 3 planets in their hunger for rare crystalline minerals. The worlds were lifeless husks, their atmospheres stripped away, their surfaces scarred by massive mining operations. No one had lived there for centuries. Sarah's terraforming fleet arrived like a coordinated dance of impossible technology. The lead vessel, Gaia's Touch, was a marvel that blended science and art in ways that made observers question the nature of reality itself. Its bioorganic hull seemed to breathe, pulsing with life energy that made the space around it shimmer with possibility. Beginning planetary restoration, Sarah announced to the galaxy-wide audience that was watching through hijacked communication networks, Kepler 442 bits will be our first gift to the beings who have suffered under the Senate's rule. What happened next defied every law of physics the galaxy thought it understood. The Gaia's Touch extended tendrils of energy toward the dead planet, but these weren't destructive forces. They were creative energies that worked at the molecular level, rebuilding atmosphere from cosmic dust, generating magnetic fields from pure thought, and seeding the barren surface with life that burst forth like a celebration of existence. In 6 hours, a dead world became a paradise. Oceans formed from water drawn from the quantum foam. Continents rose from the planetary core, their surfaces immediately covered with forests that grew at impossible speeds. Cities appeared, but not the sterile constructions of the old Senate. These were organic communities that blended seamlessly with the natural environment, providing homes for the liberated beings who would need new places to live. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as Sarah's teams repeated the process on world after world. Each restoration was unique, tailored to the specific needs of the species who would inhabit them. Desert worlds became lush gardens. Toxic wastelands were purified and transformed into thriving ecosystems. Worlds that had been bombed into submission during the Senate's rise to power were healed of their ancient wounds. Admiral Martinez stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Senate, his presence alone enough to reduce the once mighty rulers to trembling supplicants. Behind him, holographic displays showed the true extent of human capabilities. Ship construction facilities the size of moons were building new vessels at impossible speeds. Entire fleets were being assembled from raw materials drawn from empty space. "The time for pretense is over," Martinez announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had lived through the galaxy's darkest age and emerged with his humanity intact. "We know everything you've done. Every species you've enslaved, every world you've destroyed, every life you've taken in your hunger for power. The accounting has begun." Vex Prime, his crystalline form flickering with desperate fear, tried to maintain some semblance of authority. "You cannot simply overthrow the established order. The galaxy needs strong leadership. Without us, there will be chaos." Martinez looked at him with expressions that might have been pity. "Senator, chaos is what you've created. We're here to restore order. True order based on cooperation and mutual respect, not fear and oppression." The evidence began to display around the chamber. Recordings of Senate meetings where they discussed the deliberate suppression of younger species. Documents showing how they had sabotaged peaceful negotiations between potential allies. Files detailing experiments performed on sentient beings, reducing them to subjects for study rather than recognizing them as equals. Dr. Michael Harrison, humanity's chief xenopsychologist, stepped forward. His gentle manner and soft voice somehow made his words more devastating than any shouted accusation. "For 30,000 years, you've told yourselves that you were bringing order to chaos. But the truth is simpler and more terrible. You were afraid. Afraid that if the younger species were allowed to develop freely, they might surpass you. So you stunted their growth, suppressed their potential, and convinced yourselves it was for their own good." The Hive Collective's Queen Node 77 buzzed with frantic denials. "We provided stability. We prevented wars. Our guidance kept the peace." "Your guidance kept the peace of the graveyard," Dr. Harrison replied calmly. "Peace achieved through the suppression of hope is not peace at all. It's merely the absence of struggle. which is not the same thing. General Ironclad's mechanical form whirred with desperate calculation. What do you propose, then? Anarchy. Let every species fend for itself. The holographic display shifted, showing the new structure humanity was implementing across the galaxy. It was breathtakingly elegant in its simplicity. Instead of a ruling council imposing its will from above, there was a network of cooperation and mutual aid. Species helped each other according to their strengths, shared knowledge freely, and resolved conflicts through mediation rather than force. We propose freedom, Martine said simply. Freedom for every species to reach their full potential. Freedom to explore, to grow, to make mistakes, and learn from them. Freedom to become everything they're capable of becoming. The transformation was visible across the galaxy. On worlds where the Senate had maintained strict technology controls, human teachers arrived to share knowledge that had been suppressed for millennia. Species that had been told they were too primitive for space travel were suddenly building ships that could traverse the galaxy in days instead of years. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the new Galactic Assembly, a vast space station that had been constructed in just weeks using human technology. Unlike the old Senate chamber, this was a place of equals. Every species, no matter how small or supposedly primitive, had a voice in the discussions that shaped their shared future. The former Senate members sat in a section designated for those under tribunal review. They weren't prisoners in the traditional sense, but they were answering for their crimes. The process was remarkably civilized. No executions, no torture, no revenge. Instead, they were being educated about the damage they had caused and given opportunities to make amends. The tribunal has reached its decision, announced Arbiter Chen, a human who had specialized in interspecies law for over 10,000 years. The former Senate members are guilty of crimes against sapient life on a galactic scale. However, in keeping with the principle of restorative rather than punitive justice, they will be given the opportunity to repair the damage they have caused. The sentence was elegant in its appropriateness. The former rulers would spend the rest of their lives working to heal the worlds they had damaged, to uplift the species they had oppressed, and to teach the next generation about the importance of protecting the weak rather than exploiting them. Vex Prime, his arrogance finally broken, looked up at the human arbiters with something approaching hope. You would trust us with such responsibility. After everything we've done. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the first coordinator of the Galactic Assembly, smiled with genuine warmth. Senator, redemption is possible for anyone willing to work for it. You've made terrible mistakes, but you're not beyond hope. The galaxy needs experienced leaders, but it needs them to be wise leaders. Perhaps suffering will teach you the wisdom that power could not. The changes rippled across the galaxy with increasing speed. The Great Liberation was not just about freeing slaves or healing damaged worlds. It was about freeing the potential that had been locked away for 30,000 years. Species that had been told they were good only for manual labor discovered they had natural gifts for art, music, and poetry that enriched the galaxy's culture. Races that had been kept in primitive conditions revealed scientific insights that advanced human understanding of the universe. The Taotians, who had been used as living computers by the Kraxan Empire, developed new forms of mathematics that opened pathways to understanding reality itself. The winged ones of Proxima, forced to serve as messengers because they could fly, revealed their true nature as philosophers whose wisdom had been ignored for millennia. The crystal singers of Vega, whose voices had been used to power the Zephyrian technology, shared songs that could literally reshape matter at the atomic level. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her new laboratory, a facility that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that had no names. Around her, representatives from over 200 species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old order. They were not just building new technologies, but new ways of understanding the universe itself. The diversity is incredible, she reported to the assembly. Each species brings unique perspectives that complement human knowledge. We're not just rebuilding the galaxy, we're creating something entirely new. a civilization that draws strength from its differences rather than trying to eliminate them. The old fears were melting away. Species that had been taught to hate and fear each other were discovering common ground. The Hive Collective was learning to value individual thought alongside collective wisdom. The Voidwalkers were emerging from their shadow realms to share knowledge with beings of solid matter. The Ancient Ones were finding that their vast experience was more valuable when shared than when hoarded. As the first year of the New Order drew to a close, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The massive slave camps had become centers of learning. The industrial wastelands had become gardens. The fortress worlds had become gathering places for art and culture. War fleets had been converted into exploration vessels, carrying mixed crews of humans and aliens into the unknown reaches of space. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Phoenix Dawn, looking out at the galaxy she had helped to liberate. The stars seemed brighter now, their light reflecting off the solar collectors that powered the new civilization. Ships of a dozen different designs moved in harmony through space, their crews working together toward common goals. Status report, she requested from Marcus Torres, who had chosen to stay with her rather than take command of his own vessel. "Better than we dared hope, Captain," he replied, his voice filled with satisfaction. "The integration is proceeding smoothly. Conflict resolution councils are handling disputes without violence. The education programs are exceeding all expectations, and the new exploration missions are discovering wonders we never imagined." Elena nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. "And the warning beacons, have they been activated?" "All stations are operational," Marcus confirmed. "If we ever disappear again, if we ever abandon our responsibilities, the galaxy will remember what we taught them. They won't need us to save them next time." The warning system was perhaps humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Hidden throughout space were beacons that would activate if the Shepherds ever left again. But these weren't weapons or control systems. They were teachers, repositories of knowledge and wisdom that would guide the galaxy's inhabitants toward the light even in the darkest times. Elena smiled, finally allowing herself to feel the satisfaction of a job well done. "Then our work here is complete. The galaxy is in good hands." The Shepherds had returned, fulfilled their promise, and created something beautiful. A civilization based on cooperation instead of domination, on growth instead of control, on hope instead of fear. The galaxy was no longer a collection of prey and predators, but a community of equals working together toward a brighter future. The age of the Galactic Senate was over. The age of the Galactic Family had begun. And for the first time in 50,000 years, the stars themselves seemed to sing with joy.